if you can do the skills and have a personal brand, they're going to be able to differentiate yourself. And in a world where AI can apply for everyone.
I think career coaching is going to be more and more normalized. And I think by 2030, it's going to be very normal that's also my hope too. Going to be very normal to work with a career coach, especially in a very niche field or you have very specific specialty. It's going to be even more important for you to get some coaching.
A career coach makes so much sense to help you navigate this because it is so situational.
Yeah.
Because you have to have a strategy. If not, it's very easy to apply for a job that you're overqualified for, take the job out of desperation because you have bills to pay, and then get stuck in that job because you don't have a game plan on how to get out of it. All right, welcome back to the How to Get a Job podcast. Today we have an amazing episode of major announcements and some massive changes to the podcast. And the first massive changes, I want to introduce you all to my new co-host, Ellie Hoekman. She's going to be co-hosting the How to Get a Job podcast moving forward. And we're going to be talking about more details in this episode and much, much more. So Ellie, welcome to the episode. Officially never welcome you again because this is your home.
Yeah. Woohoo. We're doing it. Okay. It's been how many months since we were collaborating on this, and now we're finally pulling the trigger. I'm so excited. I love podcasting. I love you. I love the career coaches we talk to. I'm pumped. Let's get going.
It's been since October. So to give you all the listeners a little bit of context, Ellie and I have been working together for about a year, and she's been able to build an amazing business. And we got to put some of our best and favorite clients to come to Orlando, Florida to collaborate for 1 week of masterminding. And Ellie was there. And I'm going to tell you all, we had an interview where Ellie came in and interviewed 7 career coaches, and she just owned it. And I don't know if any of you listening to this have experienced that moment where you just saw and you just saw the future. I saw Ellie owning this room with some of the biggest career coaches on LinkedIn. And I was like, how awesome would it be if she was on the How to Get a Job podcast? And so we talked about it. We've been working on logistics. We had tons of work and priorities that we had to do. And we said, okay, let's start 2025, How to Get a Job podcast. Let's bring in a co-host. And now we're here. And Ellie, I am so pumped.
Yeah, me too. Pumped. Yeah. I think another thing you had said too is that you and I have a really good banter. Yeah. We agree on a lot of things and we also disagree on a lot of things, but we work through it and we have such good conversation. And I think when other people overhear our conversation, they get a lot of value out of it too. So I'm so excited to bring this banter, all this value that comes out of the two of us just talking to each other, to the world. So let's get going.
Yeah. No, it is going to be exciting. And, I'm excited to bring a co-host, and specifically you, because I think that podcasting, it's about building a relationship with the co-host. And just the conversation is taken to another level when there's more than one point of view. And yes, we bring in guests, and a lot of times it just goes back and forth conversation. But when we can have a healthy debate sometimes, and like I said, I think my favorite things is that we don't agree on everything. And if we did, this wouldn't be as interesting as it's going to be. And so I'm excited. So today's episode, we don't have a guest. It's Ellie, who is not a guest. She is at home. And we're going to be talking about some of our 2025 predictions. Some of them we'll agree. Some of them we won't. And then we're going to be talking about some of the most controversial topics that we see on LinkedIn, the career coaches post about. And what you can be expecting from us is a weekly episode with sometimes just me and Ellie talking about what's going on. And a lot of times, some of our favorite career coaches, some of the biggest career coaches, talking about how to get a job and have a successful career. So let's get started. Ellie, tell me, what do you think is going to happen in 2025?
Oh, my answer here is going to be so lackluster. It's going to be so boring. I think it's going to be a lot like 2024. I think it's going to be a very tough market again. I would love to say that I have high hopes for the market and new jobs, but as we're already seeing just in this first month of January, it's still really tough and maybe even getting tougher. And so what that means for job seekers is being more proactive, more creative, more diligent, more consistent than you ever have been before. And I would love to say that I've got these laser sharp predictions for 2025. But so far, I feel like it's going to be a lot like 2024. And now, if for those of you who do know me, and if you don't yet, I do have a very specific niche of clients that I work with. I work in the industrial and organizational psychology field, and in that field, that's what I'm seeing. It's the same market that we had in 2024. We saw a little bit of an uptick at the very beginning of January, I think, with the new year, new energy. But now we're settling back into the tough market that we have right now. That's my overall prediction for 2025. We can maybe get into some specific predictions for 2025 because I'd love to hear what you have to say too. But that's overall how I'm feeling. It's still going to be tough.
See, I think it's going to be more of a feast and famine type of market. I think there are some industries that are just going to be blowing up and there's going to be a lot of job openings. And then there's some other industries, to your point, that are just being affected by efficiencies. What I'm seeing a lot is like companies being afraid to do massive layoffs. And so they're doing layoffs by departments and firing like 10, 20 people per department. And if they do that, say they do that every 2 weeks and like probably hire a consulting company that comes in and they're saying, this is what you need to cut off. And they're doing that. And I see that. And I don't know this, like, I'm feeling that a lot from my relationships with people, and I have conversations. They're like, yeah, my company just laid off like 9 people in this department, 10 people in this department, right? I think a lot of that is driven by efficiencies with AI. Like, we talk a lot about how, like, I think I talk a lot about how AI is not replacing your job. It's people who know how to use AI. Like recruiters, you don't need 20 recruiters or sources anymore. I think you could just need a couple of people to do the same amount of sourcing. And so you can see efficiencies through pretty much any job, and especially the more white collar the job, the more repetitive the task is, the cheaper it is. I have friends who are business owners who used to have 44 employees who now have less than 15 employees and are doing more revenue because they become to be able to create efficiencies. And I think about how if smaller companies or even medium-sized companies, I have already found ways to cut their number of employees because of AI tools, then the big tech companies figured this out 2-3 years ago. And obviously this is why Google and Amazon and Meta had tens of thousands of people laid off 2 years ago because they already knew this was coming. But with that being said, I do think that there's some industries that are going to continue to see a lot of growth. Like, I'll give you one example, like oil and gas. Like if the new president just said, hey, just drill, baby, drill, like there's going to be jobs created there. If, they just said they're going to invest $500 billion into AI, like and building more, like there's going to be jobs created there. So I think that, again, some industries, massive boom, some others, massive layoffs.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is a really good point. And that's also why I wanted your perspective too, because I'm so niche. I'm so focused on that field that I often don't know what's going on outside in other markets. What I think about when we think about layoffs and AI, and I think about if I was working in a corporate job right now, I would start focusing on what skills are not replaceable by AI yet. And how can I leverage that skill and increase that skill and start showcasing that I have that skill. Most importantly, I got to show it. I can't just tell people I've got the skill. I've got to show that I've got that skill. Because then you're not replaceable. So if you're working in a job right now, you don't want to get laid off, you have to make yourself irreplaceable. Same for if you're a job seeker too. You should focus on those skills that can't be done by AI. Because I think the jobs themselves are going to evolve as well. The job responsibilities are going to evolve as more AI comes into the actual job. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah. And here's the thing, like, at least my perspective is like, companies are, at least for the next decade or so, they're going to need employees. And so, just what do you do to create a competitive advantage for yourself? Like, if your organization, if your department doesn't have a lot of AI tools now, like, are you doing the research to say what are the tools that are going to help create those efficiencies? Somebody's going to have to manage those tools. Somebody's going to have to oversee that. And I don't think that's going to be from one day to another that just AI replaces everyone. And if it does, and then don't, like, everyone, well, we're all screwed together. So I think it's gonna happen throughout time. And to say that, like, I think, to me, I'm always like thinking very strategically. Like, I think like a business owner, because I'm a business owner. But I think, okay, if this is happening, what would I do if I'm in the corporate world? I would do two things. One is what you said. It's like, what does AI don't do? And to me is, if everything becomes more automated and more AI driven, I would try to do the opposite and be like, what is the most human approach that I can take? Right.
Exactly.
So instead of sending emails, because we know everyone can send emails using AI and be super fast, can I send a handwritten note, or can I visit my clients in person? Right. And so, like, actually do the opposite of where the things are, because I think you see cycles will continue to repeat themselves. Like, I remember when we used to, like, thank you cards was such a big deal to do back in 2012. Now it's not. Then it didn't become, because videos became, like, doing videos became very popular. But then what if you start doing thank you cards again? Like, and then, like, you do the things that people are not doing.
Yeah, that's why
Yeah, go ahead.
Just really quick, that's why I love Loom videos. They are the bomb. They establish credibility. They make you so likable. They make you so human, so approachable, especially if you're actually talking like a human. If you're going to write up your script in ChatGPT and read off your script in the Loom video. But even still, I would think that's better than just sending off your script or sending off whatever ChatGPT wrote for you. Okay, back to you.
Absolutely. No. So I think that's one. The second thing is, I think that if you're not building a personal brand, then this is the year to start, because that's going to differentiate yourself from everybody else. So, like, a commodity is like, okay, everyone can do the skill set, but if you can do the skills and have a personal brand, they're going to be able to differentiate yourself. And in a world where AI can apply for everyone, and so now if you used to have 200 applications per job posting, I don't think we're far off to a place where somebody using AI to auto apply, and now companies are getting thousands of applications versus hundreds of applications, and then a personal brand and networking becomes even more important. So I'm not saying you need to have the same personal brand that me and Ellie have, where we're posting every single day because we're running a business out of it. But you do need to have a level of building a brand, and it doesn't have to be dances on TikTok. It can simply just be posting on LinkedIn, right? And so I think that's the second one, and the third one is soft skills. It's not so much what you say to people, but it's how you make people feel. Because AI can say the right things, but they don't change the way that, like, the feeling is not there, and people know it. So, like, if I tell ChatGPT to say, hey, I want you to be the nicest person to me and give me compliments every day, it's not really going to affect me when I read it, because I know that it's not real. But versus if you text me every day, I'm like, Daniel, you're the best, you're awesome, it will always put a smile on my face, because there's an emotional level that I think AI is nowhere near to be able to replace.
I do have another prediction for 2025 that's actually outside of this conversation we're having now, and that is that I think that career coaching is going to become more popular.
Yes.
Both in people building career coaching businesses, as well as clients looking for career coaching. I think career coaching is going to be more and more normalized, and I think by 2030 it's going to be very normal that's also my hope too. Going to be very normal to work with a career coach, especially if you are in a very niche or very special in a very niche field, or you have a very specific specialty. It's going to be even more important for you to get some coaching.
I agree.
I hope that continues to grow too.
I agree 1,000%. And I think, to me, what drives that is a couple of things. One, you see a trend of, so if you think about when people are, the bucket of people investing into education, you could break that down into two main buckets. You have traditional education, which, think about like the university system. And then you have the non-traditional education, which you can think about online courses, coaches, consultants, reading a book, or things like that. They're, like, not accredited, or like, anybody could write a book, right, and put it on Amazon, right? And you see this trend of the total pie is still the same, but higher education is, like, down like 7 or 8%, like, in the last couple of years. Then non-traditional education, which is a much, much smaller pie, is growing like by double digits. And what that tells us is that people are losing trust in the traditional education, and they're saying, hey, I don't need a 4-year degree. I'd rather pay a couple of $1,000s here to learn the skill, a couple of $1,000s here to learn this other skill, and then stack it together, right? And that's not all majors, right? There's some majors that continue to grow. Like I think engineer continues to grow. I also wouldn't go get surgery from a doctor who didn't go to med school. Like there's some things that wouldn't change. And so that's one factor. The second one is that social media has normalized people wanting to sell their knowledge. Like it is crazy the amount of different types of programs that I've seen. I've seen dating, fitness. I've seen people who help people get their gut in check, or people who help people make people's link like Bumble or Tinder profiles. And so what's happening is because of the creator economy, and people want to be creators, they want to be able to monetize their knowledge. And that obviously one of their biggest knowledges that people have is their career knowledge. And then that's going to happen. And it becomes normalized to hire a coach, and is not only exclusively for the people who are super desperate, or exclusively to executive coaching, which is what happens. Like it's either people who like don't have any experience who hire a coach because they need help getting their first opportunity, or senior leaders, which executive coaching is super normal. Like I've never heard of a CEO who doesn't have an executive coach. It's just doesn't happen. And so you have this very high coach like for executives, and you have lower under coach, but in the middle usually doesn't have a coach. And I think that's going to be normalized.
Absolutely. Definitely. Speaking of coaches selling their knowledge and sharing their knowledge with content, I think we should transition into our kind of this or that, some controversial topics, which we see maybe some discourse on LinkedIn about. So I've come up with a couple of ideas, and we're going to share our opinions here. So first one we have is the thank you and follow-up emails after an interview. Daniel, what do you think?
Absolutely. I think it is. I always think about leverage, and you know this because I think about it from a business coach standpoint. And I think about how long would it take you to write this email? Very few seconds. And so I think that there's levels to it. So at a minimum, you send a thank you email. The next level of it, I think it's like a Loom video. And then the next level above that is send a Loom video with a project. And then the next level above that is like email, Loom video, project, and then handwritten note. And the next level, go in person and deliver the note. Sorry.
Yeah, totally.
The more effort you put, the better the better, like I would say, conversion rate you have.
Totally. I think that it's so funny to me that this is even like a discourse, because in my mind, I'm like, it's so easy to do, and there's so much value. I think one of the things that I don't like to see is people saying like that the thank you email is going to get you the job, or like because you sent a thank you email, like they're going to get the job. I'm sure that happens, but I don't think that that's a realistic expectation to set for people, that if you send a thank you email, it's going to secure you the job. But I do agree that your chances are much better the more effort you put in. I specifically really like the Loom video that is like the follow-up of the interview, that has some kind of proposal, or maybe like how you tie into the company values, just something very specific for them that makes them feel special and makes them feel like you actually really want this job. Because recruiters and hiring managers, like, they know that if you really want the job, that you're probably going to come in and do a lot better. And if it's between 3 candidates who all have the same experience, but one of them is just a little bit more excited about the role and tries a little bit harder, they're probably going to go with that person. And with the way the market is right now, there's going to be it's going to be a lot more than 3 people with the same skill set. It's going to be maybe 10 or 20. And so by doing the things that those other 10 or 20 are not doing, that's what helps you stand out. And that's a question I get so much, which is like, how do I stand out in this competitive market? You do the things that others aren't doing.
Yep. No, I agree. I think if anything, the controversial thing is, I wouldn't just rely on having ChatGPT send the best thank you email. I think that's like at this point, because of AI, that's like the least you could do, because they're expecting that, because they know how easy it is. Like it's not hard. You can prompt ChatGPT to do that in like 10 seconds. Here's my resume. Here's my job description. Here's the takeaways from the conversation. Can you write a thank you email? And then so that's not hard. And that's where if at a bare minimum, you should do a Loom video.
Yeah. You do bring up a really good point, though, about what you're saying to ChatGPT. Because if you're saying, hey, ChatGPT, I had an interview, can you write a thank you email? It's going to write the most generic, vague, crappy, probably thank you email. But if you provide it with the details, this is the job description, these are my key takeaways. Like if you recorded it on, Fathom Note Taker and you provide the transcript, like it's probably actually going to write up a pretty decent thank you email. But then again, if you just send that alone, like we were talking about before, it's not going to have the same impact as if you were to actually put yourself into it and, record a video and send that off. So awesome. Like that a lot. All right. So next topic is somewhat related, because it's about doing projects as a part of the hiring process. Now, this is where I feel like I see a lot of discourse on this online of people feeling like their project is going to get stolen, that it's not fair that they have to do all this work to potentially not get a job or not get a paycheck. What are your thoughts on it? Doing projects as a part of the hiring process.
I'm a big fan of them, and I understand the point of like you shouldn't be doing work for free. Like that's the best case that someone opposing this point of view has, and you're gonna give away your ideas for free. And here's my thoughts, and I look biased a little bit because I am a business owner and I love when people do projects when they're interviewing for me, but it's not to steal their ideas, because if the idea is that good, they will just automatically be hired. But that's besides the point. I think ultimately a couple of things happen when the project. It's one, it shows the level of effort and that you're willing to go the extra mile. So it's just it shows it speaks louder than any words that you can say in an interview, because actions speak louder than words.
Yeah.
Two, I hope that that's not the only idea you have. And so like if you're able to say like I just want to give my best idea, like ideas honestly are good. What's hard is execution. And so like so that's the second one. Third, I think it also depends. Like, I don't know, you should do a project every single application. I think that at that point, it's very difficult. And I think it's just like how bad, like I always want to ask my clients whenever they're looking for a job and like I have this opportunity, I'm like, on a scale of 1 to 10, like this is the worst company in the world. Like even if I get an offer, I'm going to say no to 10. This is my dream. I've always dreamed of being at this company. Where does this lie? And I think if it's a 7 or higher, I think it's a no-brainer to do a project. And also the amount of time you're willing to spend on this project could vary the higher you rank this particular opportunity.
Yeah. So I think there's two kinds of projects. And I think the one you're talking about is kind of a voluntary project. That's me putting forth this idea as an extra, as a standing out. And then there's also like projects as a part of the process.
Yes. Okay.
Which I think that some people they get a little nervous about. And it's understandable to be nervous, but my opinion, actually, I'm ripping it straight from our friend Kyle Thomas, which is that if that project doesn't excite you, if you're not excited to get started on that and that doesn't sound like fun to you, this job might not be a good fit for you. I, from a hiring perspective, as a previous recruiter and as a recruitment consultant, what I can tell you is that the best hires are made when we really know what their capabilities are. And through doing this project, whether it's required or not, when we get a sense of your capabilities, we are able to place you in a job that is going to be a better fit for you, where you're not going to get burnt out. You're not going to be too stressed out. You're still going to be challenged just that little bit that you need. But if you don't do the project, or you say, I'm not going to do the project, I'm not going to work for free, this isn't going to work for me, I don't want to do it, then I think that you're limiting yourself a lot. And what I will say is don't take an entire day to do the project. Take like 2 or 3 hours and put together something kind of bare bones, but still make it high quality. Have AI help you, have your coach help you, like get some feedback on it. And like, it should ultimately be like somewhat exciting to you. And if it's exciting to you, then one, you'll probably do better. And two, this might be a really good fit for you. So my guidance when someone is feeling nervous about it is that, yeah, that's normal to feel nervous, but this is an opportunity for you to showcase that you have the skills and the capabilities to really do this job, which is going to make them more confident in hiring you. And the more confident they are in hiring you, the probably better your offer is going to be too. So
yeah.
This
reminds me of, there's a podcaster that I listen to, and he talks about how he now has them read a book. So he's an author, so he wrote a book, and he has everyone that's applying to the company to read a book and to write a book report. So he was explaining how like his HR funnel worked, that he was like, because there's like one of the top 10 podcasts in the world, and they're growing really fast, they get thousands of applications. So whenever they post, they not only get hundreds, they get thousands. And every single one of them, they say, hey, we're super excited. Like there's a couple of things. Once they are one of them is read the book and write a book report. And he says out of the 1,000 people, only 200 read the book. Mm-hmm. Or 200 people fill out the book report. And out of those 200, like 150 actually read the book. And like, so you start like funneling them. And I think your point is super valid of like how excited, and I think, you said it to Kyle, you're giving Kyle credit. It's like, how excited are you? Because if I really wanted to work for that podcaster, like I would read the book. And probably you should have even read the book before you applied many times, because that's the reason why you've been following that person. And if you cannot get excited to spend 4 or 5 hours reading a book, which is a long time, then this is like a sign that it's not right for you, because there's plenty of people who are willing to do that. And so I do think that it's very, I would say, especially if you have a really good culture and you have a great company, and so you can get a little picky and selective. So this works really well if you have enough quality applications. This doesn't work well if your company doesn't have a good reputation or you don't have enough top of funnel applications. So usually if they have those projects, to me, it's a sign that it's a good company, because they're trying to filter people out.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. I like that. I like that mindset. Okay. So here's another one that I think you and I might actually disagree on. We've agreed on everything mostly so far. So this one I think we might have a bit of a disagreement on, and that is, how qualified should you be for the job that you're applying for? Should it be a stretch role? Should it be a safe role? Where do you land on that spectrum?
So I think for me, it's very hard to say a specific percentage, solely because I think also depends where you are in your life and how fast do you need to get a job. But I think a good spot for me is 70 to 80%. And the reason why is because if you're 100% qualified, I think, to me, you're overqualified and you are not giving yourself room to grow in the role, which means that you would be bored in about 6 months to a year, which means will leave for you to turn over to another role, another company, and so on. I think if you have below 70%, then you might be underqualified. And that also then is going to lead to you maybe not getting the job, or if you get the job because you maybe are interview really well or oversold yourself, the gap might be too hard to close. But I think what's not important is not so much the percentage as much as is what percentage of your work is spent on the times you're good at versus the times that you're not good at. Because if you have 10 bullet points on the job description, all those 10 bullet points are not created equal. There's probably 3 to 4 of those bullet points where you're spending 80% of the time. So it's like the 80-20 rule. But if you had to put me in a corner and say, Daniel, give me a percentage, 70 to 80%.
Okay. I like that a lot. So actually, I do agree with your line of thinking there. And
no, there's disagreement. That's kidding.
No. I agree with your line of thinking, but I do have a disagreement, I promise. Okay. And that is that, and it comes from my own personal experience of applying for a job that I was absolutely, fully, completely qualified for. And my game plan was, I'm going to get this job, and then I'm going to get in there and I'm going to hit it out of the park. And I'm going to be super active, and I'm going to be volunteering for every project I can possibly get on. I'm going to have a really good relationship with my manager because this is a great company. And this is my opportunity to get in and just show them all that I can do so that I can get promoted, raises, future. And it worked. And so I had a client last year who got a job, and she was feeling really upset and unmotivated because she was like, I can do this job in my sleep. Like, the pay is so low, but the company is good. And I said to her, I was like, have you thought about just the fact that you're going to go in there and you're going to hit it out of the park with an awesome company? And now you're going to have a good reputation, and an awesome company. And I feel like that was kind of a light bulb moment for her of like, oh wait, this could actually be a really good opportunity. And so now what I recommend to my clients is like, apply for both the stretch and the safe jobs, especially if you're in a very specialized niche like we are, where it's sometimes kind of hard to find jobs to apply to. So you have to be a little crafty. And that is to apply to it. But what I also want to add on to that too is that you can apply to it, you can interview, and you can say no. If you apply and you interview and it's not aligned, it's going to be way too easy. You're going to be too bored. The pay is too low. You can say no. I think that sometimes when people are applying to jobs, they're like, well, I better be fully ready to accept this job if I get it. That's not true. It can also be an exploration as well. And can be actually really good practice for you for finding more of what you do actually want and what is aligned. So there's my agreement / disagreement.
I want to agree and disagree with you on your agreement / disagreement.
Okay.
So this is where I think a career coach makes so much sense to help you navigate this.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is so situational.
Yeah.
Because you have to have a strategy. If not, it's very easy to apply for a job that you're overqualified for, take the job out of desperation because you have bills to pay, and then get stuck in that job because you don't have a game plan on how to get out of it, right? And so that is the navigation part of it. And I think that's what I was saying when I was saying if you had to put me in a corner 70 to 80%, but I think there is a strategy on how to go for jobs under it or over it. If you are currently at a job and you're say you like your job, you don't love your job, you don't hate your job, you can go and start applying for jobs where you're maybe underqualified for in those stretch goals, but you're not in a rush to get them because it might take you longer to get those stretch opportunities because the only way to get to the interview might be through networking, and organic networking takes time to do that. If you are been let go, been fired, and you have bills stacking up, you don't have the luxury of time. And so that's where all those situations does change the strategy that you might have to do or you might do. And so I think this is why it is so situational. And I think this is where working with a coach to help you navigate those decisions will pay for itself and more.
Yeah. There's something really important that I want every listener to understand. And that is that this conversation that we're having right now, this back and forth of, it can go this way, it can go this way. It's very circumstantial. That type of content does not blow up on LinkedIn or TikTok.
Yes.
On LinkedIn or TikTok, you are going to see only apply for jobs that are 80% or higher, because in content building, you have to be very specific about what you're saying. If you go back on what you're saying and you provide other arguments, just in our short form content that we're consuming on social media platforms like LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, whatever you use, you have to really essentially make one point. And so I want to say that because I know that a lot of job seekers are really frustrated because they're getting a lot of conflicting information from the content that they're consuming. Because the content that they're consuming does not have the full argument laid out and the full arc of the story laid out, like you get from your longer form content, like a podcast or a video or a book. And so what I recommend to people who are getting into that spot where they're consuming a lot of content and getting very confused by the content, I encourage them to start exploring more long form content, more long form conversations like podcasts like this one, or read a book about job search, or watch a video, like a longer video about strategies, or of course hire a coach so that you can get guidance for your own personal situation. If you are just going to be taking the short form content and trying to implement that over and over and over again, you're going to get frustrated because short form content has to be super laser focused on one idea. So just want to make that very clear for everybody who's listening so that you can actually consume content, advice, and guidance in a healthy way. The other thing I give too is it's when you get advice or you read content, you can either accept it, adapt it, or reject it. And it is up to you what you decide to do. You do not have to follow every single piece of advice that you see. You have to work out what's best for you, or work with a coach to figure out what is going to be best for you, what strategy is going to be best for you.
Yeah, Ellie, I think what you just said is so important, and it's not talked about enough, because the way that we have to write short-term like a post on LinkedIn, or even a 1 minute TikTok or Instagram reel, or even a story, is not only one point, but a lot of times you're making it controversial, you're spiking it up, you're spicing it up to be able to get that attention that the algorithm is rewarding, and it doesn't have enough context. So it's based on the truth, but it's not the whole truth. And it's not until you go deeper to understand the overall strategy that you can actually execute that. The second is that there's many right way, like there's more than one right way to get a job or to get an interview or to network. And if you're just bits and pieces taking directions for, like, let's say 10, 15 different career coaches, a lot of the times all you're doing is turning right and then keep going in a circle. Versus if you just find one person that you really trust and like and go deeper into their content and really try to piece together their strategy, or even if they have some sort of a longer format, whether it's a podcast, a book, or a course, or even working with them, I think it serves somebody better than just trying to like pick and choose whatever you think is right. And all it's going to do is complicate you.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're right. Like the algorithm is not going to reward anything that's not like controversial and like starts conversation, which makes it very challenging for job seekers to consume, because they're only consuming the extremes, not all of the in between. So
I'm going to say something, and this is not so popular. I would say some of the biggest career coaches with the biggest engagements on like social media are actually the worst coaches. And some of the best career coaches don't have a really good social media following. And so don't judge a career coach by the follower count. That's it.
So true.
Yeah.
So true. I know of a very, very good career coach who their content is, when they write it themselves, it's not very good. Yeah. It's good guidance because it comes from this career coach who I know is very good, but it's not at grabbing attention. But that's the whole thing, is like, it's going to be harder to grow without that attention grabbing. So yeah.
To build a really big career coaching business, right, you need to understand the like marketing side of it and then the coaching side of it. And it's really, and there are some people who have good following and good programs. And then there are people who have good following, bad programs. And there's people who have no followers or little followers and great programs. And I think the key here is just read testimonials and interview coaches, right? So read testimonials, interview coaches. Yeah. Anyways, I know we are wrapping it up. I'll let you, any last words before we ended?
The only thing I want to say is, if you're listening to this podcast right now, come and connect with us on LinkedIn and tell us what career coaches you want to hear from. Who are the career coaches that you consume content from, who you really like, or maybe even the ones you disagree with, and so that we can bring them on and hear their stories and they can share their guidance with all of us. We'd love to hear who you want to hear from. So let us know. That's the only thing that's all I've got. But otherwise, this was so fun.
Like, you know what's crazy? Time just flew by. It's already, anyways, it's gonna be amazing. This is gonna be an amazing year for the How to Get a Job podcast. So if you're listening to this and you haven't already, hit the subscribe notification button. What are you waiting for? If you're not connected with Ellie already on LinkedIn, what are you waiting for? Ellie, you are awesome. You guys are all awesome. Thanks for listening, and catch you guys on the next episode. Bye, everyone.